Well, I don't think it's a question of firepower, Nick, because the army has got massive firepower at its disposal. It's a question more of skill in street fighting, which Hezbollah has got a lot of. The kind of guerrilla warfare you need, street guerrilla stuff, to get to winkle out the determined opposition. As I say, I don't think we can presuppose at the moment that Hezbollah is absolutely instrumental. Obviously, the opposition are playing up that line, but the extent to which they're taking part, we simply don't know, but they are involved in that area. Exactly how much they're taking part in this current battle on the ground in Qusair itself, we can't really document.
But Jim, when you look at this happening at the moment, how can we project this forward, given that the Syrian troops of the Syrian government may want to try and seize back other areas which are currently more under Syrian rebel control?
Well, certainly this is just part of the broader picture, which is that the government is already hitting back very strongly in many areas. At the moment, the overall impression is that things have tilted the government's way. Now, that may be temporary. The rebels, for example, are complaining that, for example, Qatar has cut off arms supplies that were coming in through Jordan, possibly Turkey as well. And Saudis and others likewise may be cutting back. And the impression is that the Americans are kind of turning off the arms tap, possibly in advance of this big conference that's supposed to be happening probably early in June. But of course, therefore, if that conference fails and the Americans decide this is the moment to open the floodgates, that picture could change. But at the moment, the government has been pushing back the rebels around Damascus itself, where the situation has eased quite a lot. Homs, they've been making some progress. In Aleppo, there's still very much disputed territory up there. But there are various areas also around Daraa in the south, where the government has been much more assertive and has been making gains against the rebels.
Jimia in Beirut and several car bombs have exploded in two major cities in Iraq. At least 20 people have been killed and many more have been wounded. In the southern port city of Basra, which is mainly Shiite, there were at least 2 explosions. And in the capital Baghdad, several bombs went off at the bus station and in marketplaces in mainly Shiite areas. And in northern Afghanistan, a bomb has killed several people. They included a senior politician. Police in Baghlan province said a suicide attacker wearing a military uniform detonated a bomb vest. He was entering the municipal council's headquarters. At least 10 people died. One of them was the head of the provincial council. He was known to take a tough stance against the Taliban. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has given a scathing assessment of the United Nations peacekeeping force in the neighbouring Democratic Republic of Congo. It's made the security and political situation there even worse, he has told the BBC. Well, Rwanda's government has itself been accused by the UN of supporting rebels in Congo. But Mr. Kagame told the BBC that peacekeepers had done nothing to address the root of the problems.
Well, in some cases it has really become worse, because if we see what we had last year, the silence of the fighting and the chaos and displacement of people and so on and so forth. This came when the force had been there for nearly a decade, or actually a decade. So it's not just not making it worse, not making it better that people are looking for, but this time, with what we witnessed last year, actually the situation got worse.
The African Union showing support for military intervention in Congo by African nations. Does Mr. Kagame think they can do better?
I think they're trying to say, well, let's structure this differently, maybe we can get different results, but still, there are things that really don't add up. If you look at the problems relating to the situation in Congo, they are mainly political. They are not military, or would not find a solution that is military, even if the military effort would back other efforts. But those other efforts seem to be even more important. So the intervention, they so to speak, encourage it to happen and support it, needs to be coordinated properly with the political effort and the political solution, so that this is backing a political solution rather than just being a solution in itself.
And you can see the full interview with President Kagame on Focus on Africa. That's here on BBC World News at 17:30 GMT. North Korea has fired another short-range missile into the sea off its eastern coast. It is the 5th fired since Saturday. It comes during a tense stalemate in its relations with both South Korea and the US. Well, let's go to the BBC's Lucy Williamson in Seoul. Lucy, what's being reported?
Well, as you mentioned there, this is the 5th has launched a short-range missile off its eastern coast. It launched 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and now another one today at around 11 a.m. local time. And it does do this from time to time. It's a routine activity for North Korea to test-fire these short-range missiles 100, 200 kilometres off its coast. But I think given the current situation, the kind of tensions that we've seen in the region recently, people here in South Korea are keeping a very close eye indeed on what kind of activities are going on. And this is an unusually long, unusually sustained launch period for North Korea, we don't know.
And Lucy, short range, how short?
Probably around 150 kilometres, something like that. There are two real concerns here, and they're not the ones that we saw around the intermediate range missiles that North Korea was thought to have on its coast a few weeks ago. This is very different. South Korea is used to the North firing off these short-range missiles off its coastline every few months. There are two concerns. One is that North Korea may be firing off something new, a new kind of rocket, for example, and that's something that South Korean officials are reportedly looking into. The other concern around this activity is that North Korea may be planning some future action, maybe planning to ratchet up the tension again to get some kind of international response, and that, of course, would also be of concern.
And quickly, Lucy, any reports of contacts between China and Pyongyang, between the South and North, or is North Korea really almost sealing itself off at the moment?
North Korea has been seen to be sealing itself off a little bit from its Chinese neighbour for a good few months now. It's obviously very, very difficult to read exactly what's going on in Pyongyang, but there's certainly been an awful lot of shuttle diplomacy in the region over the past few weeks, and many people here are waiting to see what, if anything, comes of that. At the moment, North Korea and the US and South Korea seem very far apart.
All right, Lucy, thanks for the latest there from Seoul in South Korea. Other news as this out, police in Tunisia have used tear gas to disperse stone-throwing demonstrators. They came from a hardline Islamist movement in a suburb of the capital Tunis. At least one protester died. Supporters of the movement were prevented from holding their annual conference. The lawyer representing Guatemala's former military leader, who was convicted earlier this month of genocide, says he's confident the verdict will be overturned within days. Efrain Rios Montt was sentenced to 80 years in prison for crimes against humanity. That was during his time as Guatemala's leader in the 1980s. His lawyer says there were procedural errors in the trials. Hundreds of people have attended the funeral of a senior Pakistani politician from Imran Khan's Movement for Justice Party. Zara Shahid Hussain was buried in Karachi with heightened tension the day after she was shot dead outside her home by gunmen on motorbikes. Move to business. Sally's joined me. Interesting developments from Yahoo, spending a lot of money for a company that doesn't make a lot.
Absolutely, and it's the news by the relatively recently appointed Chief Executive Marissa Mayer. So Yahoo has invited